The Future of English is a programme of research that investigates trends in the uses, the roles and the changes in the English language, and it's an ongoing programme of research. How can it help educators and organisations? Well, I believe that the research that the programme is doing provides a window into the developments in English, locally, regionally, globally, and those developments help to inform policy, planning and practice. So it really does aim to support all levels of the education system through evidence and insight through the research projects that it undertakes. Being able to use English now and for the foreseeable future is a real asset for individuals to progress in life, be it educationally, be it through employment. And if individuals progress through life with using English, that will help organisations and hopefully countries progress in ways that they want to as well. We published Future of English Global Perspectives in April 2023, and I've been fortunate enough to talk about the findings and the research with educators, policymakers all over the world. And there are threads that are coming through that started from the book, so the book was a bit of a springboard, but have kind of grown in impact and momentum as the year's grown. One of them is teacher wellbeing. So since the pandemic, as education systems try to navigate whatever the new normal might be for them, teachers are being asked to do more. Teachers are asked to do things differently, to learn new skills, and there is a lot of discussion about, are we asking teachers to do too much? How are we supporting teachers? Are we looking after them? If we don't look after our teachers, who's looking after our learners? So that's a really important thread that's come through. Another important topic is assessment. And assessment has grown in importance simply because people want to get on, people want to see progress. And where education systems are grappling with what we call summative assessment, so kind of end of term, end of year, high stakes assessment, there's increasing importance on formative assessment, so assessment for learning. How are teachers supporting learners throughout their learning, even before they get to the summative assessment? And that goes back to training. So assessment is at the forefront at the moment, especially with technology as well. And how can technology support assessment of all kinds? Another thing that I hear a lot of talk about is EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion. And if you put the J in front of it, justice as well. And there are lots and lots of conversations about this, and I wonder how much progress we're making, because back in April last year, one of the findings from the book was everybody thinks this is important. We should be inclusive in our teaching, learning and assessment. How do we do it practically? What does it mean on the ground in terms of resources, in terms of training, in terms of additional support? So everybody recognises that we should be looking at this and thinking about it and doing something. But the big question is, well, how? How do we do it in reality? And the final thing for me that's come through really strongly this year is policy. Policy will decide how you teach, what you teach, how many hours of learning learners get, how assessments are done. And one of the questions around policy is, what does it mean for the classroom? So looking at that gap between policy and practice. And those are the things that come through, amongst lots of other things, but the big ones for me. Almost every conference I've been to in the last year, multilingual has been talked about. If it hasn't been a thread in itself, it's been talked about. And I was part of a webinar yesterday where my co-presenter was saying there is a lot of research around the teaching and learning in multilingual context. There is very little research around assessment in multilingual contexts. And I think this is something that needs to increase, needs to be explored, And multilingualism is one of those things that actually has grown bottom up. It's not come down through policy, it's something that teachers are doing with their learners, practicing with their learners because they see a need. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And it goes back to the gap I was talking between policy and practice. And so I think one of the big questions moving forward is how is policy going to support what's already happening in many classrooms around the world regarding multilingual education? When we talk about technology in education a year ago, we're talking about it being an enabler. So it provided access to many more learners and teachers, but also a disruptor. So if you didn't have it, then you were at a disadvantage. A year on, for me, I think technology is about opportunity. I think there's a massive, massive opportunity here for technology providers to actually support as many learners as they can globally, as many teachers as they can globally, and in different ways. And I think this is the strength of technology, the fact that there is such a diversity in what's available. And I think we're not looking at the diversity enough. I think we're looking at it can and it can't. And I think that's very binary. Whereas technology, as we all know, is so massively multidimensional. I think if we look at the range out there and see how it can support learners in different contexts in the way that they need it, and moving away from the fact that, well, it's here, what shall I do with it? And I think that is a bit reductionist. So for me, technology in education is about opportunity and taking those opportunities and exploring them to help as many learners as we can. Through our research, again, for Global Perspectives, employers were saying to us, well, you're sending young people to us who are employable, but when they get into post, they can't really perform the duties we want of them. So for me, I think we need to start with the workplace because, as I said right at the beginning, environments are changing. Workplace environments are changing. Increasingly, a lot of workplace environments are hybrid. They're multicultural, they're multilinguistic. And I think we need to start with what are the skills and behaviours needed and work backwards to see how we prepare young people for readiness. But for me, it's part of a bigger picture where education systems are really going to have to look closely at revisiting the models, because environments are going to continue changing. The workplace isn't going to stay static. And so education systems are going to have to become a little more agile, a little more mobile, and maybe even a little modular so that they can tweak and change as the workplace environment changes as well. And I think we talk a lot about the skills that young people need, and language is one of them. And we talk about 21st century skills or core skills, but it's also about behaviours. And they're something else that have come through to the forefront in the last couple of years. So it's about skills and behaviours and language together. I think the future is incredibly positive. I am absolutely amazed how different contexts have responded to coming out of the pandemic and how they have continued to grow and develop. I am very, very much encouraged by the conversations that are happening around different aspects of ELT. I am very positive about the Future of English programme providing insights that will help inform not only the role of English in education programmes, but English alongside other languages. Because as the book discusses, multilingualism is very common now. Most contexts are multilingual. So it's not just about English, but it's about English with other languages and working together. So in answer to your question, I think the future is very positive. I think that we, and we being all stakeholders involved in education, need to work more closely together. And rather than see technology as something that's new and shiny, integrate it in everything we do. And I think that will help our learners moving forward.